All right, good. So Brandon, you may not know this story, but and you may not even know this particular day that I'm about to tell you about. But this is back when I was hot and heavy coaching and recruiting and at Sacred Heart. I maybe what year were you like a high school junior or senior?
Junior was 2015. I graduated in 2016.
Okay, so it's probably sometime in like 2015. I had heard about you from Anthony Yako, which will probably come up again on this talk. Yako's like, this kid's the freaking real deal. He's a great kid. I'm telling you, he's going to be a big leaguer. He's if not, he's going to be the next Tom House. He's unbelievable. And I said, all right, dude, yeah, I trust you. Yako's an awesome guy and knows his stuff. So it was actually a showcase at Malloy on Long Island. Now, you probably arrived to the field at 7 o'clock in the morning. I don't know if you remember this detail. And,
I do.
and you absolutely busted your ass. First of all, really, as a position player, you were like playing shortstop. I remember you switch hit. Is that accurate?
Yep. Yep.
So by the time you actually got to do the pitching portion of the day, I'm telling you, it was 4 or 5 o'clock. And I know from the turf and the way you were going about it, no crap, you lost 10 pounds that day. I know that for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
By the time I go to watch you pitch, it's not like you were bad, but you were throwing 79, 80. I'm like, yeah, it's not exciting, whatever. Remember telling that to Yako. Yako's like telling me I'm an idiot. And so, that was it. Literally the day after that, I forgot who you were because recruiting is a million kids and it's overwhelming. And then it wasn't probably till like a year and a half, maybe 2 years later, I overhear some of the Sacred Heart guys who must have been playing with you in the summer, probably at Danbury.
Yeah, we played a lot of those guys.
Yeah, I didn't ask them about you. They were just saying, yeah, Brandon White, and like the guy's crazy. He warms up for 2 hours and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, where is he now? A Siena? And they're like, yeah, the dude's 92, 94, and he's unbelievable. And I go, holy, like it was this huge. I was happy for you, mad at myself, but of course defending myself and you, in that you basically did a marathon before you threw a bullpen at that day.
Yep.
So, and you're obviously, people have been, you've had stories written about you. Hopefully, fingers crossed, maybe this is the year you make the big leagues and then a lot more people know your story. But I'm interested in talking to you because you're the telltale guy that it wasn't about where you were in 2015. Even, you were overlooked. I overlooked you. You went to Siena, obviously not a power program, and you just kind of like you had a plan that you kept executing, and then eventually everybody figured it out. So to start with, I guess the first question, what was the start of the path that you got on? Was there a particular coach? Or did you just find out your stuff? Like what got you started on the path to where you are now?
Yeah, as you mentioned before, Anthony Yako was pretty much the beginning to my introduction to, I guess, high-level baseball, or wanting to achieve high-level baseball. I got to him when I was around 10 years old, and he's a big guy. My parents always tell this story. I was 10 years old, and I had thrown a bullpen with him. And I was with my team. We were with a separate travel organization. I threw a bullpen with him, and I want to say I went like 10 for 10 with strikes. And he stood up and he said, like, this kid's not going anywhere. I'm working with him. He's mine. Nobody else touches him. And my parents were like, oh God, like, who is this guy? He's a very intimidating figure.
Yes, he is. Yes.
Yeah. And so I didn't really know. He said, I'll take you, wherever you want to go. Let's pitch in the big league. Let's go to the Hall of Fame. Let's do all of it. Right. And I said, absolutely. Like, I'm 10 years old. I want to play high school baseball. I want to play on varsity. I want to play college ball, get drafted, all that stuff. Like, each step of the way, he had brought up to me and kind of like brought to my mind that if I stay focused and do what he tells me to do, that I can achieve each step along the way. And so that was kind of the beginning introduction to it. So I was about 10. But then around 14, age 14, he introduced me to Tom House, and we went out to Los Angeles and worked with Tom and his crew out there. And so that was kind of when I got surrounded by guys who were in upper levels. I want to say I was a sophomore in high school that year. And I was around minor leaguers, a couple big league guys, a whole bunch of college athletes, and I was undersized and I wasn't throwing anywhere near the velocities that these guys were. But it was motivating and it inspired me to try and achieve that, because I felt like, well, in a couple of years I could do that. In a couple of years I'll be able to do that. I just need to take care of what I have in front of me, which is just the day-to-day work that AY and Tom were able to kind of map out for me, like the little check marks along the way of things that I needed to achieve in order to build my way up to those next levels.
So this is what pops into my head, which is knowing Yako and of course Tom House, et cetera. It's like they must have said the same thing or motivated many 10-year-olds. And I'm sure there's some other stories of guys, that Yako worked with and that achieved high level, maybe big leagues or college, but like there's also a lot of dudes that he said the same thing, you're mine, I'll make you, and went nowhere or didn't go very far. So I guess I'll put it to you, is it that you just took like you were motivated and you basically took the lessons you were being given, I guess is the way to say it.
Yeah, absolutely. I try and keep it really simple. I just listened. Like I just listened to what he told me. When they told me to run at least 3 days a week, sprint every day, like throw every day, it was just like, okay, that's just what I had to do. I wasn't questioning it or not wanting to do it. It was like, this is just what I was told to do. And I believed in what he said. So, and I wanted to achieve it. So like, it was just like, all right, I'll do it. And I just started doing it. And then it was like a compounding effect where it wasn't like a massive growth in one single year. It was just steady growth through each year. It was a couple miles an hour, a couple pounds. At the time, obviously I was growing, so it was like a couple inches here and there, and just all of those things tied together kind of just continued to propel me. And it's something that I'm continuing to this day, where it's like I'm not trying to create a massive spike in my weight or my strength goals or my velocity. It's just, let's get an extra 1 mile an hour this year. Let's get an extra 2 miles an hour. And at this point, velocity is tough, but it's just little goals that each year just get a little bit better every year, and then you end up in a good spot.
And from the things you were instructed, whether it was right in the beginning or along the way, did you eventually start making it your own? Going, yeah, they told me this, but it doesn't really work for me, but I'll research this or I'll just try this. Like, how much of it became your own program?
It was on the baseball side, a lot of the stuff that they had instructed me with kind of just worked. Like it made sense to me. And then in 2015 as a junior, or I guess it was 14, into the school year of 14 to 15, I got introduced to a sports medicine program. And through Anthony, a couple years before, I had started studying just basic anatomy and physiology, just kind of understanding, just because of that's what my interest was at the time. So understanding the skeleton, muscles, and how they function. And then I got introduced to the sports medicine side, where it was injury prevention, health, rehabilitation, like muscle assessment and testing. And so through that, I started to put some of the pieces together with what I was learning from House in terms of like the biomechanics, like the physics of the body. And then the next year I took physics. And so it was like I was able to kind of put some pieces together where I was understanding how the body functions from the anatomical standpoint, but then also the physics and how that applies to the human body, which is the definition of biomechanics, which had been something I had been doing with House for the 4 years prior to that. And so those three aspects, like those pieces coming together, kind of just really sold me on what I was learning from House and what they were teaching, because all of it made sense, like from the health standpoint, which was what House had always preached. Injury prevention and health is the most important. And I started to see that in my warm-ups and my routine, it was a lot of the stuff that I was learning as rehabilitation in the sports medicine field. So it was preparation and rehab to take care of my muscles, to make sure that I feel good and I function well. But I was seeing it on the baseball field, and I was also growing in velocity. So like, it was one of those things where pieces came together and I was seeing results in each field. So it just made sense to continue to listen to it.
And, when I think of Tom House, I think of a leading biomechanical guy in terms of delivery, et cetera. From him or anywhere else, did you really learn more even about strength training? You talk sports medicine, which is more prehab, rehab. Did you on your own become an expert in or learn more about, strength and conditioning?
Yeah, so it was through the sports medicine program that I was taking. I became certified as a personal trainer. So I learned how that works, but I was also kind of training some of the younger guys at AY's place. So I was doing all the training on top of baseball, and I was trying to pick his brain as much as I could. He has I mean, a ton of information on that field from one of the Doc Gorman from where who trained him. So pretty much the information that I was learning in sports medicine, I was also trying to apply to what I was doing to myself personally, like the stimulus that I was putting on my body, which was helping me play baseball. So I was picking AY's brain, learning it in sports medicine, and same type of thing, kind of just trying to put pieces together to train myself.
So was it as kept improving in terms of results on the field, metrics, velocity, effectiveness, getting people out, et cetera? Did that growth come from the body, so to speak? And I guess, was it more, and maybe it's equally both, was it more the development of your body or the biomechanics and your delivery, the way you're moving, or equal parts?
I would say early on it was biomechanics, because I wanted to just try and figure out, like, I mean, as you would know, I was a smaller guy, like thinner frame, smaller dude, wasn't throwing particularly hard. So early on, I tried to maximize my biomechanics and just how I threw the baseball, just to try and, squeeze as much juice out of me as I possibly could to try and, get some extra velo. But as I was doing all that, I was also trying to take the experiences and what I was learning on the field in terms of what pitches get swing and misses, what pitches, get hit pretty hard, what am I struggling to execute and command, and trying to just take each piece, like each aspect of the game, and build on it and just learn from it. And I mean, still to this day, that's what every outing, is just more information for you to learn and figure out how guys are seeing your stuff so that you can make adjustments and constantly be adapting so that you're not predictable and you can continue your good results without hitting a string of, say, a couple bad weeks or a bad month, where you're just getting hit and you can't figure out why.
So you're taking it. Have you become somewhat of an expert, if you will, in Rapsodo, TrackMan, spin, movement, all that? Yes.
Yeah. So that was so in 2019, right after I got drafted, that was the first time I had been introduced to data. We had Rapsodo and we had TrackMan, but we didn't really know what it meant. I remember throwing on the Rapsodo and seeing spin and the efficiency and velocity, and I didn't know what it meant. And I knew that I was behind in that front because other teams or other organizations I knew had known that. And there were players who I was playing against had been utilizing some information for the last year or two. So I didn't like that feeling of like being behind instead of being at the forefront of something. So that winter, I tried to dive in and didn't really learn too much. The winter of 19 into 20. So then coming into the spring training of 2020, I threw one bullpen. It was the best bullpen I had thrown. My velocity spiked from, I want to say the summer, like that summer in the GCL prior to, I was like 89, 92. Like I wasn't throwing particularly hard. It was the end of the year. After 90 innings at Siena. But I came into the bullpen, I was sitting like 4 to 6, and my slider was spinning at 3,000. And so I didn't really know what any of it meant. I just knew that my velocity was good. And I just knew that I needed more information. And thankfully the Tigers had hired an analytics team. And so right after that bullpen, I went into the offices and I said, hey, like, I don't know what any of this means. Like, help me. Like, can you just explain what all of it is? And so I have an understanding. And so they kind of broke down each of my pitches and kind of gave me some goals of what I was looking for in the Rapsodo. And then that day is when the NBA shut down, the MLB shut down, and we got sent home the next 2 days. So I didn't get to work with anybody. But once I got that baseline of information, I mean, those next couple months, that was all I was focusing on developing was, my pitches based on what they had told me. But once the season had started that summer in July, the MLB season, there was nothing else on. And so I dove into Baseball Savant and I started to learn a little bit of the deeper details and what pitches guys were throwing. And I would chart some games and see what pitches guys were getting ahead on and executing. and then I would go into the data and try and figure out like why stuff was working the way it was. And so after that summer, I pretty much knew what I needed to in terms of the data and how it applies, and then how it best suits me. And then the last couple of years, it's refining that information and sometimes learning new things here and there.
And then based on, I guess, and this is awesome. I mean, I think the lesson to anyone that's going to watch this is basically you just got to keep on learning, keep on growing, and be open. And like you said in the beginning, you're just able to listen. I think it's a really good lesson. Along the way in the minors, and I'm sure I'm not even want to talk about necessarily college, because I think now in terms of the minors, and I don't know if in this spring training or last you've dealt with the major league pitching coach. Are you now to the point where you know yourself so well that obviously it's not like you're not listening, because it sounds like obviously you would listen to any suggestion, but do you feel like the best pitching coach in the world is yourself for you?
Yeah, I would say so, and thankfully, we're kind of all on the same page. We've had with the big league pitching coach and our assistant pitching coach and the bullpen coach, all the people who I'm involved with, we're all speaking the same language now, which is awesome. So like what I'm talking about is the same way that the pitching coach would explain it to me, and so we're kind of on the same page where we all have an understanding of the data, what I'm personally trying to do in my mechanics, and which pitches are the best. And so we're all on the same page, which it makes everything super simple, because I'm not trying to filter what they're saying, because it's like I know that we're all on the same page here. So things are like, it's easy. But yeah, I mean, on the mound, I mean, it's always super, I mean, it's the most important thing to be your own pitching coach, because nobody's out there with you. So it's only you and your thoughts, and seeing what the hitters do and how they're reacting to your pitches, like being able to coach yourself in, like, to quickly switch and adapt to situations is super important. If they're seeing your slider or something, like being able to pick up on that, not after, 1 or 2 innings, but, as soon as like the second hit you give up, it's like, okay, well, wait a minute, maybe they're seeing my slider. I need to make an adjustment on it. Or any other pitch. I mean, just knowing how to talk to yourself and get immediate, I guess, changes and with the feedback from the hitters is super important. Yeah.
Do you find that you are, to a fault, ever on the mound too analytical, too thinking, and like, do you get old school competitive enough, like I'm just beating the dude at the plate, or do you get too high level in your head sometimes?
No, it's one of those things growing up I struggled with a lot more than now, where I was just trying to get into my head a little bit too much and trying to be too fine and not trusting myself enough. It's because I know that I've put in enough work to execute pitches. I know that I've put in enough game planning and preparation to get hitters out. So I don't feel the need at this point in my career to try and overthink to try and get guys out. I just need to focus and go out there and just execute with like full conviction behind every single pitch. And I have the faith that I'll be able to get the hitters out regardless. Because I mean, at this point, the catchers are so smart too that I don't have to overthink. They can sit there and think and focus on what pitch needs to be thrown, and I just say yes and then do my best to execute that.
Something you said earlier just popped into my head too, because again, over at this place at ATP, and this might have been the thing that made me reach out to you whenever it was a month ago. It was Simon Whiteman. Do you know Simon?
Yeah, absolutely. I played or threw live against him, I want to say the last 2 winters, and then I don't think I faced him like in last season. I don't think I actually he stood in the box, but I talked to him a little bit when he was playing with Richmond. But
So Simon went to the local high school to me, Fairfield Prep. He went to Yale. Great kid, obviously fast, etc. He's smart, but he had said something like, yeah, I faced, White in live at bats in the winter. And then he comes up to me after he pitched to me and he's like, what'd you see? So is that a common practice of you kind of getting some feedback from the hitters?
Yeah, absolutely. It's honestly probably one of my favorite things to do when it comes to live ABs. Like especially with hitters, who have seen as many pitches and who are as good as Simon, learning what he sees and if I'm tipping any pitches, which is one of the most important things, but also like if he spits on what I think is a good pitch, like I need to understand why. Like, why did you like? I didn't think I expected you to swing at that. Why did you not swing at that? And so it was, live ABs where you have the open communication and open feedback, like, and also like I have the confidence to where it's like I can make mistakes in live AB and I'm not worried about it because I'm out there. I'm trying to work on things. I'm trying to, try new pitches or execute different spots or sequences, like whatever it may be. So the more I learn and the more I can talk to a hitter, the more I can talk to Simon, the more information I have so that I can make adjustments and not make the same mistake again if he saw something that I did.
Okay, a couple more questions then. One is sort of about now getting us up to the present. Obviously, this year you just moved into your place in Toledo. We talked before we started recording how the minor leagues has gotten a lot better in terms of paying for housing and really, frankly, made the life easier of a minor leaguer than it ever was before, which is credit to Major League Baseball. And, some people have to suffer through some tough stuff, but it seems like it's, obviously for the better now. What is your approach? You're on the 40 man, which is terrific. I happen to coach two guys, Jason Foley, who's with the big league club, and then Zach Short, who will be with you in Toledo.
Yep.
You strike me as patient. You strike me as every day you're just going to move it forward, and when the phone call rings, if and when it does, you'll be ready to roll, and you're not going to like stress out about, you're just going to keep doing the best you can, which is pretty much what you've always done. So is
Yeah,
that your
absolutely.
approach going into, the 23 season, is just to do what you've always done?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just staying focused on the day to day. Obviously it's fun to think about, if and when that call comes and trying to play GM and it's like who's gonna move and who's all that. But ultimately it's just I need to stay ready and just focus on what I'm doing, because if I do what I'm good at and I execute the way that I need to, that time will come. So it's being patient, but it's like an urgency type thing. Like I'm on the field trying to force my way into it, but being patient with the moves that actually need to be made, because there's nothing that I can do with that. I mean, that would be me trying to control what I can't control, and that doesn't get me anywhere and only creates some anxiety, which don't need. So yeah, it's just keeping it simple and just doing what I need to do on the field, and things will take care of themselves.
One other, I'm going to ask you really two more main questions. One is, I deal with a lot of kids now that are high school sophomores, juniors. I'm helping them from a pitching standpoint a lot. Sometimes I'm working with hitters, and a lot of them on the recruiting process. And I see how amazingly stressed out kids are with the recruiting process, and they get so down, like no one wants me. And, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, you weren't crazy highly recruited out of Mayo Pac before getting to Siena. Did you remember being like, what the hell's going on with this recruiting?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't commit to Siena until April of my senior year, like the middle of April of my senior year. So it was it's a very long process, and I started it early to try through AY's help. We tried to start it early and just send out some info just to try and get my name to as many schools as possible, because I knew I was going to be undersized. I knew I wasn't really going to necessarily like blow people out of the water, but I did have that I guess underlying faith or confidence in myself that I will be ready when that time comes. Like I'll be ready to go when it's time for college. And whether that was my velocity or my stuff, I always had that faith in myself that I was going to put in the work and that things were going to go my way. Like I had the belief that things were going to work out and I was going to be fine. I just needed to get an offer from a school so that I could go and play. So it absolutely is stressful. But it's one of those things that's like control what you can control. It's just what we had just talked about. Whether or not a team offers you, you can't control that. But what you can control is when you go to a showcase, you're prepared and you go out there and you execute as well as you can, and then hopefully things will work out the way it does. But just being prepared every day is the most important piece.
Obviously the simple goal, you have a great baseball career. First and foremost, you want to play as long as you can, the highest level you can. It seems like I know the answer to this question, but I ask it. Let's say, at 32 years old, baseball is done, you've gone as far as you can. What are you going to do? Are you going to become the next Tom House? Are you going to try to work for Driveline? Are you going to start your own company? Do you want to be a
Yeah.
pro pitching? Like, where's your head at in terms of after baseball?
Yeah. I honestly haven't thought too much of it. Honestly, I do. I mean, I know for a fact I'm going to be on the field for the rest of my life. I've been saying that for a little bit. Like, there's nothing else that I really care about as much as is working with guys, helping guys out. Just on the field, whether it's training, like training guys like physical, like strength and conditioning in that front, or just biomechanics and pitching delivery, being a pitching coach, like all the above. I mean, I haven't thought too much of it, but I'm gonna be in the game forever. So whichever avenue kind of opens up at that time, whichever I guess seems best. But I wouldn't be surprised if I have a facility or groups and doing what very similar stuff to what Tom does, where guys kind of fly in and you work with guys on the weekends or throughout a couple of weeks. Like I've done that before, and so it's fun. So that definitely would be an avenue that I'd be interested in.
All right, and I did say last thing, but one final thing. What's the Toledo like? When does Toledo start, and what's at the moment your role in Toledo?
So opening night is tomorrow night, or tomorrow at like 4 o'clock. But the role, I honestly don't know what my role is going to be. I'm in the bullpen.
Okay. Yeah.
Last year I went through every role possible in Double A. I was closing games. I was also like throwing the 6th and 7th inning, like 2 inning stints. I'd throw the 7th and 8th. I mean, it was kind of just, I mean, sometimes even the 10th. Like it all kind of depended on what the game was telling us. And I was throwing well last year, so I got put into a bunch of high leverage situations, which is always more fun. I mean, that's where the pressure is, and that's where things are, the nitty gritty happens. But at the moment, I don't really know what the plan is. First couple weeks of the season, I think a lot of guys kind of get pushed up and down here and there, try every different role to figure out where they're the most successful. But I would like a high leverage role. That would be the goal for sure.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Listen, hey, Brent, I appreciate your time. I'm glad we connected. I'm so happy for you. I'm glad that, that what AY told me those years ago now, which is almost 10 years ago, is actually gone the right way, that you're going to take the game as far on the field. And if not, you're going to be probably one of the leading guys to help move it forward. So I wish you the best of luck. I'll certainly track you. And who knows, if I have a road trip to Toledo to see Shorty, I'll be sure to let you know too.
Sounds good. Thank you. No, I really appreciate it. It's been a ton of fun.
You got it. All right. We'll talk soon then.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Take care.